the English Lake District, 563,200 acres of national parkland, 27 lakes, 2,110 hotels and guest houses,
and a railway.
Yes, a railway, running from the foot of Scaw Fell, England's highest mountain, 7 miles down the valley to the ancient Roman port of Ravenglass. Its official title is the Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway, though it's known locally with great affection as Lal Ratti. Today it's a major tourist attraction, running throughout the year, and has been around for about 100 of those. It's had a very checkered career, so checkered in fact that you'll need a guide. So, follow me. After all, who better to show you round than the spirit of old Ratti himself? The present track is 15-inch narrow gauge, but it didn't always run along these lines. In fact, it began life as a 36-inch gauge. And this is what started it: iron. Or to be more precise, iron ore. Rich hematite ore, once mined here in Eskdale by Whitehaven Iron Mines Limited. The year was 1871. The Franco-Prussian War was raging, and iron ore was in demand. Although the price was high, the cost of cartage to the coast at Ravenglass was uneconomic. What was needed was a railway. The line and the story began right here at Boot. In 1873, the necessary Act of Parliament was granted to the Ravenglass and Eskdale Railway Company, and work commenced. By 1875, the track, built to a 36-inch gauge, was completed and opened for goods traffic. It wasn't long before it was realized that the line could also provide a useful service to the isolated farms and villages of the valley, so an application was made to carry passengers. At first, the Board of Trade inspector turned down the application on the grounds that the line was dangerous and...
I don't recollect having seen anywhere masonry of such indifferent quality. The stations require shelters, name boards, clocks, and conveniences.
By the 20th of November, 1876, these problems were overcome. And the Whitehaven News reported the departure of the first passenger train. This soon became a tourist attraction for the people from the industrial west coast who made regular day trips into the peaceful countryside. But the line still relied mainly on goods traffic for the bulk of its income. To increase revenue, granite quarries were opened here at Beckfoot. But unfortunately, the financial situation was never very stable. Passenger traffic ceased first because the line was no longer safe, and eventually the iron ore mines became totally uneconomic. Freight traffic continued fitfully until the 30th of April 1913, when the railway itself was finally forced to close. The line lay idle for 2 years until Robert Proctor Mitchell arrived to assess its suitability for conversion to a narrow gauge system. Despite the dereliction, negotiations went ahead with the former chairman of the Eskdale Railway Board, Edward Dawson, for release of the line, a contract which, as it happens, he had no legal right to negotiate. Before the contract was even signed, relaying of the track to a 15-inch gauge began, and the first part of the line was opened to passengers in 1915. April 1917 saw the completion to Boot terminus. Stock was obtained, and a regular service resumed. The upkeep of the line relied mainly on private money, but this couldn't even keep pace with general wear and tear, so the added financial involvement of a local resident, Sir Aubrey Brocklebank, was welcomed. He even supplied a scale model loco, which was, appropriately, named after him. By 1922, the Beckfoot quarry was reopened, and a new loco, the River Esk, was built from a design by Henry Greenley, then consulting engineer. This loco was to haul the heavy stone trains down the valley to another of Greenley's designs, the Mirthwaite crushing plant. From here, the crushed stone was carried to Ravenglass, where a rotary tippler transferred it to the mainline wagons. By 1924, the lack of a legal lease had brought financial matters to a head. And in order to safeguard his investment, Sir Aubrey decided to take complete control. The Proctor-Mitchell era ended with his resignation in 1925. The capacity of the crushing plant here at Merthwaite was increased, but even with the new, larger, narrow-gauge hopper wagons, it was still considered economic to build a standard gauge branch line from Merthwaite to the main line at Ravenglass. The meeting of the two gauges became known as the Big Points, and a standard gauge diesel loco, the Kerr Stewart, was acquired to work this new traffic. The passenger aspect of the line continued, and the late 1920s saw an increased effort to make it a tourist attraction. It ran well until the outbreak of the war in 1939. Soon after the war, the line was sold to the Keswick Granite Company, who continued to operate both the quarries and the railway, until a major change in the tax laws resulted in the line being offered for sale as a going concern for the inclusive price of £22,500. As a direct result of this, enthusiasts all over the country combined to form a preservation society, and it was members of this society who ultimately made the winning bid at the public auction in 1960. They were financially assisted by Colin Gilbert, who became the first managing director of the operating company. His association with the line, together with that of Sir Wavell Wakefield, now Lord Wakefield of Kendal, became significant during the next few years. One of the major improvements before his death in November 1968 was a cutting at Hollinghead Bluff, the first realignment of the track for nearly 40 years. Mr. P.G. Sarto, then chairman of the Preservation Society, designed and later opened the cutting, which now stands as a fitting memorial to Mr. Gilbert. The Preservation Society has continued to contribute to the success of the line, one of its crowning achievements being the provision of funds for a new steam locomotive, the River Mite. Of the 3 steam locomotives at present in operation, the oldest is the River Urt. Apart from the boiler, all the parts that matter are original, dating from 1894, and making this the oldest 15-inch gauge engine in the country. But today, the first train out of Ravenglass is to be headed by the River Esk. Let's join it. Morning, Peter.
Oh, hello there.
Any chance of a ride on the footplate today?
Yeah, sure. We're just about to go.
Thank you.
The next train for Eskdale is the train standing on platform 2. Platform 2.
How long does the journey take, Peter?
About 40 minutes up to Dalegarth. Then for the total return trip it's about an hour and 40 minutes. Apart from loop lines, there's only one track for trains going in both directions. So we must keep well to time to avoid delays and possibly missing British rail connections.
What sort of service do you run?
Well, we run one steam loco every day from March through to November, and then from May to September, the 3 steam engines run every day. In the middle of the season, in July and August, we rely on diesels to fill in with extra trains, and it's in this area that the new steam locomotive Northern Rock will help, in that we'll be able to run many more steam-hauled trains. The boiler of this new locomotive was built outside, but all the other constructional work, the frames, the cylinders, the wheels, the motion, the tender, it's all been machined and fitted here in our workshops. One of the attractions of the line, even for me, is that it changes day by day. You get clear views of the fells some days, and on others the mist is sweeping down them. In spring you get the flowers, the young buds coming out. This time of the year you have the heather and the rowan trees. And then come the middle of September, everything turns a deep red with autumn colours. You get a tremendous variety of scenery, from the estuary with the seabirds at Ravenglass, through the woods of Miterdale, and up into the crags of Eskdale.
Do any of the members of the Preservation Society actually work on the railway?
We get possibly 50 or 60 a year, spending a week or a month of their holidays working. The jobs they do vary from engine cleaning, coach cleaning, tidying up the stations, car park duty. We rely on them at this time of year to act as guards, because the permanent staff guards are busy driving extra trains. As well as that, the volunteers are continuing with a project they started last winter of erecting telegraph poles for a telephone line up the railway. Although the railway's changed considerably and traffic's increased and everything's improved out of recognition from what it was in 1960, the railway still needs the society and its support, whether in physical tasks or in publicity or whatever else. We're just coming up to Urton Road now. It's the main stop on the line. I don't suppose it's changed much in 100 years.
you turn around and go back in.
So, here we are at journey's end. We've travelled 7 miles and 100 years. I wonder what the next century has in store for Laurati. I'll be back to see. How about you?